say your name, followed by the pound sign. You will now be placed into the conference. Please say your name, followed by the pound sign. Has joined the conference. You will now be placed.
I'm just going to give it a second so that the two board members can have a chance to reconnect. We'll hear them when they do. Do we have any board members on the phone right now?
Doug Triani.
Okay.
Dwight McAllis.
Okay. We're ready. Thank you very much for your patience and sorry for the technical difficulties. Okay.
Good morning. Hereby call the Finance Committee for March 21st, 2019 to order. The first item is the roll call. Madam Secretary, can you do the roll call, please?
Certainly. Director Colson? Director Groven? Here. Director Holt? Here. Director Cotel?
Here.
Director Lewis? Director Triani?
Here.
By phone, Director McAllis?
Here.
By phone, both filling out the necessary paperwork. Director Melvin, who
Here.
is the acting chair for the committee.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have a quorum of 7 present with 1 absent. Also present are Directors Durante, Frega, Fuentes, Higgins, Pang, Ross, Sager, and Chairman Dillard.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Item number 2 is the approval of the minutes from the meeting held on February 21st. Are there any questions or comments about the minutes? If there are none, like a motion and a second, please. Director Holt moves, second by Director Colson. Do we need a vote, Madam Secretary?
Let's do one for a roll
Let's do a vote.
for base.
Okay, great, please.
Okay, Director Colson? Yes. Director Groven? Yes. Director Holt? Yes. Director Cotel?
Aye.
Director Melvin?
Aye.
Director Triani?
Aye.
Director McAllis?
Aye.
7 ayes and 1 absent.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Item 3A is the report on the monthly financial results for January 2019. B, please. Thank you.
Good morning. Before I turn it over to Tim McGowan, who is our budget analyst, to present the January results, I'd like to do a follow-up from last month's board meeting. Although Director Lewis is not here, he'll certainly see the information in the meeting minutes. But he had asked about the PACE compressed natural gas operation on their overall fuel expense. PACE staff has provided us with a breakdown for 2018, which indicated that CNG cost PACE about 60 cents per gallon versus the $2.09 per gallon of diesel for the rest of PACE's buses fleet. However, there are 99 CNG buses operated in the South Division only. So while it's sizable, it is still only about 15% of PACE's total bus fleet. So while the CNG component of PACE's overall fuel expense did provide price stability and some operational savings, it's really not large enough to prevent PACE's overall 2018 fuel expenses from an unfavorable result, as diesel fuel prices rose above the budgeted assumption. So another comment, the January Service Board results came up short on ridership and operating revenue, as evidenced by the red on this month's dashboard. You haven't seen this much red in a long time. But remember, we lived through some of the historically coldest weather over the closing days of the month, which pretty much shut down some of the system. The other thing is that, schools were shut down, many businesses as well, and a lot of folks working from home. Tim is about to tell you right now that the impact of January's extreme cold was similar to what we experienced in January of 2014. So with that, Tim, if you could please start. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Today I'm presenting the year-to-date financial results through January. As B said, snow and severe cold led to service disruptions and closings, which greatly impacted ridership and in turn revenue for the month. However, the service boards were able to control their expenses, which helped mitigate the overall financial results. System ridership through January was 9.1% lower than prior year and 7.9% lower than budget. Extreme temperatures at the end of the month caused riders to stay at home, as well as some reduced and/or canceled service, which is reflected in the large year-over-year ridership decrease. For comparison, the polar vortex of 2014 had a very similar loss versus prior year of 9.4%. Back on the summary table, we can see the effects of the extreme weather across the service boards relative to their budgeted ridership. CTA had the least unfavorable performance, and ADA Paratransit had the largest. In total, the system fell 3.6 million rides short to budget, which is essentially 2 days' worth of normal ridership for January. Operating revenue suffered as a result and was 5.8 million, or 6.1% unfavorable to budget. While most of the revenue impact was caused by the ridership shortfall, the service boards have also begun to reflect a 50% reduction in the assumed reduced fare reimbursement from the state, contributing to the lower revenue. The public funding section of the dashboard shows that results are essentially at budget since we have not received any 2019 sales tax results as of yet. Our latest sales tax results, December, were essentially flat to prior year. However, 2018 finished with 4.1% overall growth in pre-surcharge RTA sales tax receipts, a very encouraging performance. System-wide operating expenses in January were 4.3 million, or 1.8% favorable to budget, with Metro Pace and Pace ADA reporting favorable to budget results and CTA essentially at budget. Lower service levels resulting from the severe weather contributed to the Metro Pace and ADA expense results, and each of the service boards benefited from the lower than budgeted diesel fuel prices. Pace's results were 11.7% favorable to budget, highlighted in light blue due to favorability in all categories except overhead. Pace ADA results were 5.7%. Pace ADA results were 5.7% favorable to budget due to favorability in all categories, but especially purchase transportation due to fewer rides provided. At the regional level, favorable expenses did not fully offset the unfavorable revenue in public funding, producing a net result which is $2 million unfavorable to budget. Pace and Pace ADA each recorded a net result favorable by more than 3%, driven by strong expense performance. Through January, the regional recovery ratio of 44.9% is unfavorable to budget by 2 percentage points. In addition to the historically cold weather, it is normal to begin the year low due to revenue and expense seasonality. We'll watch for the recovery ratio to strengthen back toward the 50% level as the year progresses. The fare recovery ratio of 31.7% and the all revenue recovery ratio of 37.8% were both significantly lower than prior year, reflecting the weather-related impact on fare revenue. In the right section, CTA and Metro reported unfavorable results driven by unfavorable revenue, while with Metros exceeding 3%, highlighted in red. Pace and Pace ADA both reported favorable results due to their expense performance. In summary, the service board's expense performance in January was surprisingly good, helping to offset the effects of ridership and revenue losses. We fully expect the financials to stabilize as we move beyond this extraordinarily bad weather. Nonetheless, the service boards have begun the year with a significant operating revenue deficit, and we'll need to monitor the future results closely to confirm an improving trend. That concludes my remarks. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that report. Sobering report. It's always hard at the beginning of the year to have such tough numbers to overcome. One thing I would like to say is I think last time Chairman McAllis mentioned that it might be a good idea if somehow we got the word out that to riders, what a good value they get and how important governmental support is for the system. He thought about putting something on a ticket or something like that, or the Venture card, but maybe placards in the cars. I don't know. Just a thought. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from anyone? Director Holt?
With the variance on revenue, how much of that is due to the weather, and how much of that is, do you know how much of that is due to the assumptions around the reduced fare subsidy from the state?
Well, the reduced fare subsidy is half, 50%. So
It's
they
half of
budget
the
about
variance?
34. We budget about 34 annually, and we're getting like 17.5 or a little bit less than that. So about half of that. So we'd have to look at this specific month and see how much it was
Okay.
for this particular month.
Yeah.
But most of this is the impact of the ridership, and we'd have to look at exactly what because they do seasonal variations in their budgeting, both of the RFR. They do it as well for their ridership projections. So that's already incorporated and built into like bad weather months. Unfortunately, this was greater than what was anticipated. So we can get you exactly what they put into this
Okay, I'm
month.
just looking for some general information, and also what are our assumptions around what's going to happen with the reduced fare subsidy?
So, we negotiate our annual funding marks, including recovery, including reduced fare reimbursement. I guess the thinking is that why self-cut, right? Why assume that we're only going to get half? So the decision was made that they would adjust throughout the year, and they've demonstrated that the last 2 years.
Okay.
But to answer your question, I mean, we have not received it for 2 years. So
Yeah.
how long do you keep budgeting for it? So this year we budgeted again, and in 2020 we'll have to really think about what we do. We may budget it again. We should expect to receive it. I mean, the anticipated expense, depending on how you look at it and what types of free rides you look at, CTA will tell you it's $100 million in expense. Others will vary a little bit, and so we're projecting $34 million. People would argue we either need the equivalent of credits to offset what they're not giving us, or fund a lot more of that. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Director Higgins.
When is our next insubstantial accordance with budget vote? Is that April?
It is quarterly, and we just did it last month. So we do it. Remember, there's a 2-month lag, so it'll be in 2 more months.
Got it. I just also would point out we also had that rough day for Metra with the Amtrak issue, which if we lost essentially 2 days of ridership in January, there may be that third Metra day in, is that March?
Yes, and I also want to give you a heads up that while the expenses look pretty good, we believe there's a lag because obviously they had a lot more resources out there for Metro and CTA, so the expenses look good, but I just think because they haven't been paid out. So I'm wondering how it's going to look once those hit, maybe next month or the month after.
Chairman Taylor?
Just a couple comments. I'm not sure that those Metra days were even in this January. They may show up in February.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
right.
that was my point.
They are not.
Right. So that's not going to be pretty, Director Higgins. Just one comment. I read what I call the former Secretary of Transportation LaHood Mayor Emanuel Task Force report. And one thing that jumped out at me, and I just, I don't need an answer today from the staff, was you hear so much about Lyft and Uber and all the rideshare operations. But the number for rideshares is the total number, and granted you're like a year behind in the study, and ride sharing I'm sure is up in numbers, but it is only 3 days. The entire Lyft and Uber ridership is about 3 days of how many people mass transit moves. And I want you all to sort of look at that, because everybody hand wrings about how much Uber and Lyft is having an impact. but all of the rides that they gave in a year period is only 3 days or less than 3 days of our ridership. So I really want you to sort of zero in on those numbers. As Dorval Carter has told us, just to understand the magnitude of the number of people we move, I think he uses 14 hours, but it is a staggering number of hours. If everyone in the Willis Tower took Uber and Lyft to work, I think his number is it would take 14 hours to unload those rideshare folks in front of that building. So everybody, gets exercised, and certainly Uber and Lyft have an impact, and there could be a positive impact in some circumstances on us. But a year's ridership of rideshare was about 3 days of our ridership. So when people are talking about the future, the city comes to a meltdown without mass transit because those rideshare operators in no way can ever handle. And I know also Dorval points out that the impact they do have mostly on us is in weekend service, not necessarily through the week. So I'd really like you guys to just kind of drill down on those rideshare numbers. But I was surprised at how few, and I put that in quotes, riders they really move compared to what we move in mass transit. And we always blame them for a decline in some of our numbers, and I'm sure that probably is true. But I'd really like a good analysis of how much you think they really are impacting us, because on a relative basis, they move very few people. And obviously, they slow down our bus movement, which has a negative impact on people choosing, am I going to take a cab or am I going to take, Uber or ride the bus? So it's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Chairman Dillon. Any other comments or questions? That was very, very interesting. Thank you. Okay. Then we will move on to item number 4. Item number 4, ordinances amending the 2019 to 2023 capital program, amending the strategic capital improvement program, and extending spending deadlines for innovation, coordination, and enhancement ICE projects. Jill, please.
Good morning. I'm going to turn this over to Lori Newson. She's our division director for the capital program to go over these 3 administrative ordinances this morning. Lori?
Thank you, Jill. Good morning, Director Melvin and members of the Finance Committee. We are here to request approval of 3 ordinances. First, an amendment to the 2019 through 2023 capital program incorporating changes in the program revenues and expenses. Got it? Okay, great. Thank you. For CTA, Metro, and PACE. Second, an amendment to approve 12-month extensions for CTA, Metro, and PACE's innovation, coordination, and enhancement, referred to as ICE, funded projects. Third, an amendment to the Strategic Capital Improvement Plan program, referred to as SCIP, that will be submitted to the governor for approval. So let me walk you through the first change of the first ordinance that we are recommending. As the first quarterly amendment of the 2019 through 2023 capital program, we are asking you to approve a total net funding increase in the amount of $104.94 million, of which $7.38 million is allocated to CTA, $95.73 million to Metra, and $1.83 million to PACE. Now, the $7.38 million increase for CTA consists of reprogrammed SCIP bonds, which we'll cover a little bit more in detail later in the presentation, and also reprogrammed RTA discretionary funds granted to CTA in prior years. Now, CTA will use these reprogrammed funds for their rail car quarterly life overhaul for the 5000 series and to address unanticipated capital needs. Now, the $95.73 million increase for Metra consists of 2 new federal discretionary grants totaling $16.06 million, which are the Volkswagen Clean Air Act Civil Settlement Grant and a Consolidated Rail Infrastructure Safety Improvement Grant. And they will also reprogram ICE, RTA bonds, and SKIP bonds from prior years. Now, Metro used to increase funding for new locomotives, track and structure activities, PTC, yard improvements, communication improvements, the Blue Island Vermont Station, Street Station, substation improvements, and replacement of interlockers. Now, PACE's $1.83 million funding increase consists of reprogrammed federal formula funds, SKIP bonds, and RTA bonds from prior years. PACE will use these funding for improvements of passenger facilities, purchase of paratransit vehicles, and transit asset management program, and the transit asset management program. The details of the funding changes for all three service boards are included in the capital program schedules 2A and 2B, which is attached to the ordinance. Now, moving on to the second ordinance, we are requesting your approval of 12-month extensions for CTA, Metra, and PACE ICE-funded projects. A detailed list of these projects have been provided to you. Staff has reviewed and found these the extensions to be justified as outlined in the ordinance request memo. Now, for the third and final ordinance, we are requesting your approval to amend the SKIP plan for submission to the governor for approval. It is necessary to amend the SKIP-funded projects in the amount of, it is necessary to amend the SKIP plan to allow CTA, Metra, and PACE to use project cost savings from other SKIP-funded projects in the amount of $3.96 million to address new emerging capital needs and other priorities. The proposed changes are reflected in the capital program schedules 2A and 2B, and the attached summarized Amendment 10. As illustrated in the summarized Amendment 10, CTA will use its cost savings to complete rail car mid-life overhaul for 5000 series. Metro will use its cost savings for positive train control, known as PTC, and PACE will use its cost savings for improvements to the Northwest Transportation Center. This concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have regarding the three ordinance requests.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just one quick one. So on the SKIP bonds, this is the amendment has to be made because of the cost savings from other projects to be applied to future projects. Is that correct?
According to the previous program rules and regulations, the SKIP, any time we make an amendment to the SKIP program, we have to seek the governor approval.
Right.
So some of the projects that were completed with the SKIP under the SKIP program, there were some cost savings. So because we have to amend it, we have to get the governor's approval. So there's about $3.96 million that the service boards were able to realize in cost savings from other projects.
Thank you. That's great.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Anyone? Okay, we need a motion to approve. So may I have a motion and a second, please? Great. Director Lewis, Director Groven.
Nope. Oh.
Second, what?
Where's Director Lewis? He's not here.
Yeah, I am. I'm here. I told you it was going to be late.
Oh, we need the record to reflect that Director Lewis is here. Sorry.
I think we need a roll call. So, Madam Secretary, would you provide a roll call, please?
Yes. Director Colson? Yes. Director Groven? Yes. Director Holt? Aye. Director Cotel?
Aye.
Director Lewis?
Fully here.
Director Melvin?
Aye.
Director Traiani?
Aye.
Director McGallis? Are you there?
Aye.
8 ayes and no absent.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there any other business to come before the committee? If there's no further business to become before the public session of the Finance Committee, I will entertain a motion and a second to adjourn. Director Groven, Director Holt. Moves and seconds. Leave? Give us leave, please. Leave.
8 ayes.
The Finance Committee is closed. Thank you.
Let Audrey catch her breath. Okay, good. Good morning, everyone. I'll call the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Regional Transportation Authority to order. And let's begin, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance